You avoid anything that has a moderate here, okay? So, what's so bad that's in it? Okay, the biggest bad one is the propylparaben. If you see paraben, or if you see fragrance, because fragrance is usually going to be paraben. Okay, all of these have sex hormone-like effects, and they're also carcinogens. Retinol palmitate, this is a vitamin A. They have some concerns about that. Sometimes they overreact, but look at how many things that are in here that are really bad for you. Okay, now let's look at organic essence. Overall hazard low, 2, score over there. 433110000. Okay, now the other thing that will give you a clue is ingredients: purified water, glycerin, mineral oil, ammonium lactate, salicylic acid, trolamine, glycerol stearate SE, behentrimonium, methosulfate, and cetearyl alcohol, PEG 100 stearate, cetyl alcohol. If you can't pronounce it, okay, you need to put it back on the shelf. What's in here? Aloe. I can't pronounce some of these either. Barbadensis leaf. Oh, it's aloe. Thank you. Interpretation. It's aloe juice. Camellia. Green tea leaf. Shea butter. Palm oil. Isn't that more what you want to put on your body? Right? Yeah. So, EWG is a wonderful resource. Spend some time there. All right. They also have a list of all the sunscreens. There are 90% of the sunscreens are toxic. There are lots of them out there that are really healthy for you. Okay. They don't break down in the sun. They're safe to use. I would encourage every single one of you who has autoimmune disease, spend 10 to 15 minutes several times a week, at least 3 times a week, outside, face uncovered, arms exposed, and make some vitamin D between 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock every day. Yes, good, you do that, all right. Okay. Because the kind of vitamin D that you make with your skin is much better than the kind that you swallow, for lots of different reasons. And so you need to have exposure. If you're deciding that you're going to really try to teach your skin how to tan, okay, like I do weird experiments now and then, take 10,000 micrograms of selenamethionine the morning that you want to go outside and spend a lot of time outside. Do not wear any sunscreen, okay? You will get red. Now, I do not suggest that you go to the beach, go to a nude beach and do this. I mean, be reasonable, okay? I did it for about 6 hours, starting at about 9 o'clock in the morning to about 3 in the afternoon. And I was red by that afternoon. And the next morning I was tanned. And do I look like I tan? I don't tan. There's no tan. So you can play with that. Okay. So there are ways that you can teach yourself how to tan, and you're actually making more vitamin D. But try to get outside. We have this sun phobia, and I honestly think that is part of the reason we see so much more autoimmune disease. Most people who have autoimmune disease that I see, their vitamin D levels, their blood levels are in the toilet. You want your vitamin D level to be between 65 and 85, even up to 100 if you have an autoimmune disease. At that level, the autoimmune disease will calm down. Just by having enough vitamin D3.
Would you repeat the instructions as to how long?
65,
How long should you stay in, for how long?
15 minutes a day with your face and your arms exposed. So go outside and be outside for 10 to 15 minutes, all right? And then go ahead and put on your sunscreen so you don't burn. And they used to talk in terms of 3 times a week. Now the catch there, for those of us who've had a lot of birthdays, is that I don't know how much vitamin D you're going to make. As we get older, the dogma is that we make less and less vitamin D. Now I tried myself, I'm 61, I tried over the past couple of months not taking my vitamin D for a while because I ran out and never got around to getting any more. And I said, okay, let me see what happens because I'm going to be out in my garden a lot. And I was able to keep my level at 69. It dropped down from close to 100, and I'm a little bit stiffer and achier now than I was, but it was at 69, and that's okay. I have one patient though who is 84, who has spent her entire life in the sun, on the lake, and her vitamin D to this day is still higher than her age. It's about 85, 86, 87. Now, her face looks like she's made of leather. Her body looks like she's made of leather. But she's happy. You know? Doesn't have cancer. You know, if you get your vitamin D level up between 65 and 85, it tremendously reduces your risk of 16 different kinds of internal cancer. Okay, in addition to autoimmune disease.
Would those levels be the same in children?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. The dosing will be different because they're smaller. Okay, but yeah.
But you want this, that's target level?
That's the target level.
Okay.
You're not going to get into problems. You know, the Institute of Medicine says you need a vitamin D of no more than 40, and that you have to be below 30 for it to be low. And I'm just, where's the science behind this? So, let me keep going. So there are lots of chemicals. One thing, I see your hand, hold on for a second. One other thing I want you to do, okay, I'm going to close this, I'm going to bore you with all of that, I know. Here, the one that you absolutely have to go to is go look at the baby, okay? A study was done back in 2004, paid for by EWG, and they studied 10 different Americans, and they tested for over 400 different chemicals. And they found between 150 and 250 chemicals in each of those Americans. They had done a similar study back in about 1991 or 1992. Bill Moyers was one of those first 9 adults that was studied. This one was different. This was the cord blood of brand new newborn babies. So this is what the babies had been living in for 9 months before they were born. Now, how many of you have parents? What happens when older people take 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 drugs? What happens? They get side effects. They have drug interactions. Somehow, in its great wisdom, our government and EPA and other groups in the government basically have chosen just to test a very few chemicals that have been released into the atmosphere, less than 5,000, but they only test them by themselves. Do you really think that there's not going to be any interaction between all of these different chemicals? Kids are being born with around 200 different, and living in a chemical soup for 9 months. Do you really think there's not going to be some interaction there? I'm not trying to make this a downer. I'm trying to make you aware of the fact that we are polluted. And we have to take action to get ourselves clean. And it can be sauna. It can be certain kinds of detox baths. It can be doing a 28-day cleanse. It can be exercise. I mean, there are all kinds of ways. I mean, we can spiritually clean ourselves. I mean, there are all kinds of ways that we can clean and get rid of these toxins. But every single day, you have to take things that enhance your ability to detox, because our bodies are just overwhelmed. And then several times a year, you have to actively do a cleanse to reduce the number of chemicals. And once you get clean, you'll know when you have to do it again. You will know, because some of your symptoms will start coming back. And you'll be really clean for a while, then start eating out more, have a little more alcohol. I was on vacation. Remember, your cells do not go on vacation. Okay. I went on vacation too. Okay. I mean, I'm not above any of these things. I can do bad things to my body. You're okay, liver. But that's the world we live in. And the people who have autoimmune disease, you're the canaries in the mine. You're the one who are getting sicker right now. And if you do not do something, you will continue to get sicker. You had a question?
I was just gonna suggest hot yoga.
Oh,
It helps me.
yeah, yeah. Hot yoga is a wonderful way of sweating, as long as you have the stamina. You have to build up to doing it. Yeah.
Takes me a while.
But what are you doing? You're sweating. Yeah. And there's a hot yoga in town that is not a real intense one. It's a calmer one. I don't know who sets it up. I can't tell you. But there's one that is more relaxing as opposed to wide open hot yoga. So I think that one that was more stretching and more was not quite as energetically demanding would be safer for people who already don't feel well.
What was the
Yes,
name of the
ma'am.
website? EWG?
EWG.org, O-R-G. But this is just, it's a wonderful video to watch, and it will make you tear up at what we're doing with our children. And so that's why I have a big focus in this practice. You want to get pregnant? We get you clean first. And it takes 6 months to a year. Okay? You want to get pregnant? Oh, okay. Okay. Because it's tougher when you're pregnant. There are things that you can do when you're pregnant, but you don't want to stir stuff up because it concentrates across the placenta. Yeah. Okay, all right. Now, there are so many treatments for lupus in particular. You know, everybody who has lupus pretty much has a low cortisol. I mean, if you test them, their cortisol's low. So that means that their adrenal glands are not working as well as they should. That's partly why prednisone works. I mean, I have lots of patients with autoimmune disease that I put on low doses of cortisol because their adrenal glands are actually exhausted. If I did those fancy tests, I would probably see that they have antibodies against their adrenal glands, that their bodies are attacking their adrenal glands, and they're going down. And sometimes we can salvage them, and sometimes we can't. But I use much, much lower doses of prednisone than you typically think of for treating lupus. I mentioned the vitamin D. I mentioned, I have not used this, but I know a lot of people so far use very high doses of DHEA. I mean, up to 200 milligrams of DHEA will stop someone's lupus from flaring. All right, it'll give you zits, and your skin will be really sweaty. But you can get control of the lupus. You can get control of a flare using high-dose DHEA. That's been studied. I mentioned the vitamin D. If you have autoimmune disease, you have to take a lot of fish oil, somewhere between 6,000 and 8,000 milligrams of EPA plus DHA a day, period. And if you have specific questions about that, if you had MS or you had more neurological symptoms, I would get more DHA. If you have more peripheral symptoms, I would use more EPA. And you can get very, very specific with that and dial up the different components to help more with brain and neurological symptoms or more with peripheral symptoms. Naltrexone is used a lot with autoimmune disease. Naltrexone is a drug that is, they don't use it a lot on the East Coast. It's used for treating addictions, especially alcohol addiction, but it's used a lot on the West Coast. Y'all remember Betty Ford, and she had a problem with alcohol, and they set up the Betty Ford Institute. They started using naltrexone out there. And the usual dose is much, much higher, but when you're dealing with autoimmune disease, you get it compounded, and it's a 4.5 milligram dose of naltrexone that you take at night. And what it does is it blocks your body's ability to see your own natural endorphins, to see your own natural narcotics that you're supposed to make. But many people with autoimmune disease, their immune system has gotten so messed up that they don't make their own natural endorphins anymore. That's a lot of the reason that people with autoimmune disease hurt more. It's because they're not making their own natural narcotics, they're not making their own natural endorphins, so they hurt more. So you take this at night while you're asleep, it can give you some weird dreams, but then the next day your body says, oh my gosh, I haven't seen the endorphins in a while, let's make endorphins. And it's not the kind of thing that bada boom, all of a sudden it's a huge difference, but it's just one more thing that helps to normalize your immune system, which is so crazily out of balance. when you have autoimmune disease, and your body's attacking itself. I mentioned the gluten-free diet and a dairy-free diet.
Does sugar play a role anywhere in autoimmune?
Well, if you're trying to get well, you get off of sugar. You don't want to eat anything that has added sugar. I mean, eat real food. Don't eat processed food.
Does sugar make autoimmune diseases worse? Or is-
Generally, yes, because it's pro-inflammatory. So anything that makes inflammation worse, like sugar. And remember, you're gonna have to get organic cane sugar, otherwise it's gonna have Roundup in it, or it's gonna be sugar beet sugar. Find out where your sugar comes from. Sugar beets, if it's just sugar, it's got Roundup in it. So both because of the toxins in it and because the sugar feeds inflammation. You know, there's so many different aspects to it, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stop speaking and simply finish this by saying that autoimmune diseases are treatable. If you remember that graph that I showed you, that, you know, you're healthy, and then you get some kind of stress and you get exposed, and then you don't know you're sick, but your immune system is getting more and more out of balance, and then you have symptoms. What's last there is basically loss of functions, degeneration. So an easy example that everyone will be familiar with is thyroiditis, autoimmune thyroiditis. What happens? Over time, your thyroid goes down, and you have to go on thyroid hormones, and you never come off of them. So you lose function over time. So it's either that you lose organ reserve in different places in your body, you lose normalcy of your organs, or you have side effects from the toxic drugs that are used in an attempt to try to just control the symptoms without really treating the cause of why you have the autoimmune disease. Anyone who has autoimmune disease, you're toxic, you have to eat cleaner food, you have to reduce the stress in your life in numerous different ways, and you can regain your health. You can regain your health. So don't give up the good fight.